We know what this company does, but what is the business model that allowed it to emerge as the titan pulling the strings of the financial world?
Hi there! In this tutorial, I'm going to show you step by step how I created this scene for a client's project. When it's finished and published, I'll share the link if you want to see it, and if there is a particular scene you like, we can do it in another tutorial. By the way, if you like documentary-style editing, my course is now available. But it's not just a course in which I show you how to animate a sequence in After Effects, and that's it. But I show you the entire procedure that I followed to create this animation. From the initial idea to the final render, going through each and every phase of the creative process. I'll leave the link in the description in case you want to take a look. Okay, so let's get started. First, as always, I'm going to import all the files. And I'm going to save them in a folder. And now I'm going to create the first composition that's going to be called Main 1920 by 1080 at 30 frames, and 20 seconds is enough. 10 seconds is also enough, but I'm going to leave it at 20. And now, from this texture called Street, I'm going to create a composition. I'm not going to do anything here for now. Later on, maybe I'll make a mask for it, but for now I'm going to leave it like this. I'm going to bring this texture to the main composition, and I'm going to convert it to 3D as well. And here in Rotation X, I'm going to set a value of -90, or 90, it doesn't matter. The point is that it stays horizontal. I'm also going to move it down a little bit. P key, and here in Y, I'm going to put 980. Now, on this texture, we have to position all the buildings and activate two views to see it better. This viewer here, I have it in left view. Well, let's start with the main building. I put it up here and I also convert it to 3D. And with the S key, I'm going to unfold the scale and I'm going to set it to 50%. Now, this building. What I want is for it to sit on the street texture. So I'm going to move it up. But I'm going to leave it like that so that the base of the building intersects the ground a little bit. Because if I leave it right there, when I activate the motion blur, you're going to see a little light underneath there. So I'm going to move it more or less along this part. Come on, let's continue. With right-click, we're going to create a 35mm camera with two nodes. Again, right-click, New, Null Object, and this one we also convert to 3D, and we parent the camera to it. We go to the beginning of the timeline and mark a keyframe in position. We're going to mark another in orientation. I'm going to leave this view activated to see how the camera moves. Well, here at the beginning, I'm going to move it a little bit upwards. But we can set the exact value here. In Y, I'm going to set it to 460, and I'm also going to zoom in quite a bit until the building takes up the entire space in the composition. Here, I'm going to set it to 1415. Well, now, from this point, I'm going to go to the 8th second. And here I'm going to move the camera backwards. I'm going to set a value of -3000 on the Z-axis. Here in Y, I'm going to move the camera a little bit upwards, more or less around there. I'm going to set a value of 430. I'm often asked why I set these exact values. And it's because after having done some tests, if I like how the camera movement has turned out, instead of it staying at, say, 426, what I do is round those values. It's simply for that reason. Okay, now the orientation, we're going to set it to 9 degrees. And look at the movement that the camera makes, which is totally straight. But as it gets closer to the end, it gets closer to the ground. And it gives us that perspective of the building. Okay, we'll smooth out all these keyframes, and we'll give these two handlers an influence of between 60 and 65, around there. We'll leave these as they come by default. So we have this movement. Easy. We're going to continue setting all the other buildings. We select them. Notice that I've named the buildings after fingers, so as not to get confused. Well, we select all of them except the main one, which we already have set. We put them up here, and we're going to set the scale to 20%. And with the layers selected, we're going to go here to Align. And we're going to align them all to the base. If this option doesn't appear, go to Windows, Align, and by clicking on this icon, they're all aligned to the base. I'm going to activate the two views again. And again, we have to convert them all to 3D. There it is. We're going to do the same as before. We move them a little bit to the front, and here to the Y-axis, we're going to move it down until it intersects a little bit with the texture composition. Okay, I think it's perfect there. Now we have to position ourselves one by one. We're going to start with the thumb. We're going to go in order. I'm also going to activate this building and the texture so that they serve as a reference. Well, this building called thumb, we're going to move it to the right. Press P, and we're going to set these values. Here we put 1950 so that it moves a little more to the right. In Y, we leave it as it is. And here in Z, we are going to put negative 265. Okay, that is going to be its position. Now we are going with the index building, which is going to be connected to the index finger. We also move it forward. A little to the right. What happens is, with right-click, this building, I am going to go to Transform, and I am going to flip it horizontally. And well, I am also going to set the scale to 25%. I am going to adjust the position here again so that it stays there with a little intersection. Okay, perfect. And now we are going to put these values. 1415 in X. We leave this one as it is. And in Z, we are going to put negative 630. That is going to be the position of that building. Come on, let's continue. Now we are going with the heart building. We also move it forward to the left. P key, and we are going to put the exact values. Here we leave it at 510. And in Z, we are going to move it even further forward, towards the camera. We put a value of negative 1,375. There it is. Now we are going to put the ring building. We move it quite a bit forward, since this is the one that is going to be closest to the camera. We put it more or less around there, and on the X-axis, we move it to the left. P key, and here we are going to put the position at 0. On the Z-axis, we put negative 1,960. There it is. And there we see how one by one they enter the scene. Okay, we have the little finger building left, which is here. Well, we can now deactivate the solo icon. And we are going to place this building more or less on that side. so that it is here between these two. Press P, and we are going to set these values. In x minus 55 and in z-axis minus 100. This is going to be the final composition. What happens is, we are going to put another building here on the right, which will serve as a resource to later make the transition. Although in this tutorial I am not going to explain how to make this transition, since I have explained it in other previous ones. But it is good to always leave some element here so that it can serve as a resource, as I say, to make the transitions between one scene and another. So we are going to select this one, duplicate it, and change its name. It is going to be called Transition Building. We are going to activate all views, and we are going to bring it quite close to the camera. We move it to the right, R key, and we're going to compensate here in X rotation, the 9 degrees of the camera orientation, so that it stays vertical. Well, we put it there a little more up, more towards the front. P key, and we're going to put these values. Here we leave it at 1460. We put 510 in Y, and in Z we're going to put negative 3830. That's going to be the final position of this building. As I said, it's going to serve to make way for the next scene. Another thing I'm going to do is the texture of the floor. I'm going to select it and move it to the front. Well, we can fix these things as we go. For now, I'm going to leave it there because I still have to put some elements behind here. With right-click, I'm going to create a solid, and this is going to be called background. If you want to put the same color as me, this is the code. And we put it at the bottom. Now, on top of this solid, I'm going to put this footage that I have here called Storm. I'm not going to make it 3D either. I'm going to leave it as is. Of course, I'm going to scale it a bit because it's too big. And I'm going to put an effect on it called Lumetri Color. And here in Basic Correction, well, as the name says, we're going to do a very basic correction. We're going to increase the temperature quite a bit. For example, 300, and I'm going to put the tint at 100. So that we get a reddish sky like this one. Okay. Now I'm going to put the opacity at 70%. I like it there, and if we want, we can move this layer to the left until the lightning appears there. Okay. Well, I like how it looks there. Another layer that we're going to put is this one called City. I'm going to put it below here as well. I'm going to make this one 3D. And I'm going to put it a little further back than the main building, which is this one here. I'm going to keep this layer alone, S key, and I'm going to move it out a little bit because it's too big. And I'm going to compensate for the 9 degrees of orientation again. I can do it here, or I can also do it from the rotation. Okay, now I'm going to move it a little bit further back, over there. To the left, this is about arranging the layers to each person's taste. I'm going to put the effect called Fill on it. For now, I'm going to leave it black, or not. I'm going to put the final color on it. This is the code 7C2323, that maroon one. Okay, what we have to do is put the CC repeat effect on this layer. And we're going to expand the pixels to the right and a little bit to the left. Look there. And this one a little bit to the left too. And from repeat, we're going to change it to unfold. It's perfect there. So we have a silhouette of the city behind these financial buildings, and it looks really cool. The next thing we're going to do is right-click, New, Light. This is going to be a point light with an intensity of 100. Here we'll leave the cast shadows on, the shadow darkness at 50%, and the diffusion at 30. Although we can modify all these settings whenever we want. Okay. Now we're going to put this light behind all the elements so that they cast shadows forward. As we always do, we are going to set the exact values. Here we leave it at 1040. On the y-axis, we are going to set it to negative 1450. And on the z-axis, we are going to set it to 1880 so that we are left with the light in this part. Now we are going to select all the building layers. This one too, well, the city one too, we are going to put them all here. Above the null, we deploy, and here in material options, the cast shadows, which is what projects the shadows. If you have it off, you put it on. And notice, we are already projecting shadows on the ground. But it accepts lights. If you have it on, we are going to leave it off. It is perfect there. Now, for each of these buildings, we are also going to put the tint effect. We are going to start with the main building. Here in Map White 2, the white color, we are going to darken it more or less around there. And we copy this effect and paste it to this building, for example. But we're going to darken the white color even more on this one. Okay, I think that might work. Now we copy this effect and paste it to all of them except the main building. There it is. So that they look a little blacker than this building. Okay, great. Let's do a preview. Let's see how it looks. This is already taking shape. Look how cool the silhouette of the city looks when the lightning appears. Look, how cool. This layer of the city, I don't want it to cast shadows. So I go here to Material Options and I deactivate the cast shadows. I leave it on off. There it is. Come on, let's continue. What we're going to do now is put that hand that we saw in the example on top of the building, which connects each finger with each building. Okay, we go here to Project, and this layer called Hand, we put it on top here. I'm going to change the color too. For example, orange. And this main building too. Now we convert the hand to 3D. We have to deactivate the light acceptor. It's on, we put it off. We're going to put it a little further back than the main building, which right now are at the same depth in Z. Then we're going to move it a little further back, upwards, press S, and we're going to lower the scale quite a bit, for example, between 38 and 40. We position it well. Okay, perfect. A little further up. I like it there. What we have to do now is connect each finger of the hand with each building through a path. Perhaps this step is the most confusing of the entire tutorial, because so far what we've done has been a basic movement with the camera and positioning the buildings. So, as I say, this may be the most complicated part of the tutorial, but if you have any questions, write me a comment and we'll solve them. Well, what I'm seeing is that here the composition of the ground, in addition to moving it a little further back. I'm also going to put the CC repeat effect on it. And I'm going to expand the pixels upwards to cover all this part where we don't have information. From repeat, I'm going to change it to unfold. There it is. Now we can start with the paths. I'm going to try to explain it in the simplest way. We select the pen tool and we're going to make a click more or less on this part. And another one on this one. Okay. We'll leave the path thickness at, for example, 15, and this one will be called thumb. We're going to go in order. Now, on this layer, we go here to Contents, Shape, and here we select the path and go to Window, and open the script Create Nulls from Paths. From these three options, we're going to choose the one that says Points Follow Nulls. Okay, we can close it now. What this has done is create two nulls, with which we have total control over this path. Okay, we select these three layers, and we are going to paint them the same color. And this null, that is going to be the one we are going to link to the building, well, we are going to give it that name, Building. This one that is going to be related to the finger, we are going to give it that name. Okay, now we are going to convert these three layers to 3D. Don't worry if they have changed position, because with the step we are going to do now, we are going to position the path correctly. For example, we come here to the hand layer. We unfold the position. With Ctrl+C, we copy it. And here to this null that we have given the name Finger Control+V, and we paste the position. What happens to this path, as we have done other times? We have to come to Material Options and say that it should not be affected by the lights either. There it is. Look where we have it. Now we have to parent this null to the hand layer. And if we now move it, well, there we see how this path follows it perfectly. Now we have to position this null at the tip of the thumb. More or less around there, okay? I think it's perfect there. And now, the other null, this one we have here, the one called Building. Well, we're going to select the thumb building and the null, P key, and the position of this null. We are going to relate it to the position of the building. There it is. We already have both connected, and even if we move the building, the path follows it, and the same thing happens with the hand. And this is one of the many possibilities that this powerful script has. What happens in this building so that the path does not stay here right in the middle? With the pan behind tool, we are going to put the anchor point more or less around this part up here. So now if we pass the camera through this path, At all times, it is related and integrated into the composition. We can also put the trim path effect on it and make a small animation. I want it to start very soon, so in this part, we mark a keyframe, and a little further back, we put it at 0. This one here, we soften it. Well, it should not go so fast. This is already adjusting the timing to each one's taste. Okay, perfect. And so, one after another, all the paths will appear and connect to each building. In order not to have to repeat the same process, we are going to do the following. You will see how easy it is. Anyway, as I said, if you have any questions, write to me and we will solve it. We select the 3 layers, duplicate them, and put them up here. I am going to change their color to orange. And if I now select this null, we can see that nothing happens, that the path does not follow its movement. That is because we have to come here to the path layer, the one called thumb, which, by the way, I am going to change the name to index. Okay, so in this layer, we come here to the first controller, the one called finger, and we are going to choose finger 2. So now if we move this null, there we see how the path follows it. We are going to put this one on the tip of the index finger. Right there, it is perfect. And now this null, we are going to link it to the index building. We select this layer again, and here we are going to select that building. Perfect. Just like we did before, we have to put the anchor point a little higher up. I am going to leave it more or less around there. Well, another thing that I have not done and that we can also do is here in the path and shape, stroke, we are going to put the ending round. Here we put round caps. And this one the same, we unfold content, shape, stroke, and the line cap that ends in round. Come on, let's continue. The process that we are going to do for the other 3 fingers is the same. So if you want, you can fast forward the video or stay to watch it. I am going to explain it step by step anyway. Control+D, we duplicate these 3 and change their color. This one is going to be called heart. And with it selected, we are going to go to the finger controller and we are going to choose finger 3. Here where it says building, we choose the one called heart, and there we see how it automatically connects with it. But we have to put the anchor point at the top. Right there. And we're going to put the null finger on the tip of this finger. Okay, perfect. This is looking great. We duplicate these 3 layers again. Well, I'm going to change the color first. This one is going to be called ring finger. We come here to the controllers, and here we're going to choose finger 4. And in the building part, we choose the one called ring finger. And the path is automatically linked to that building. All that remains is to put the anchor point a little higher. That's where I think it's perfect, and well, change this null to the other finger. Over there and there, we adjust it to the ring finger. Okay, we just have to make the little finger. We duplicate the layers and change their color. Here we're going to put the little finger. And in this controller, we select Finger 5. And in the building part, the one called Little Finger. And now we have all the fingers connected to each building. Well, we still have to adjust the anchor point of this one here. We put it up here and the null of the finger the same. We adjust it to the tip of the little finger. That's perfect. Well, let's do a preview of all this. Let's see how it looks. Well, look at that cool 3D sensation that these paths generate for us. Although these paths are not really 3D, but only through this expression that the script generates for us. What this path does is project itself onto those nulls that are in a 3D space. What we can do now is to adjust the timing. For example, this one here, the one on the ring finger, I want it to come in last. So I'm going to put it over here. Okay. I want the one on the pinky to start first. Well, I see that it appears over there, so I'm going to leave it like that. This one here, the one on the index finger, I'm also going to move it back a little bit, more or less over there. And the one on the middle finger, the same, I'm going to put it almost at the end so that it's the last one to connect with the building. Wow, this looks spectacular. Another thing we can do to give it a little more dynamism is here on the hand. Look, if I move my hand, all the paths follow it. And look how cool this effect looks. The same thing happens with buildings. If we move them, the path follows it. Well, I was saying that on the hand layer, with the Alt key pressed and clicking on the clock position, we are going to write the expression wiggle, and in parentheses, 1,100. And in Z rotation, the same. Alt plus click on the clock, and we write wiggle, and in parentheses, 1,10. Well, this looks spectacular. I am seeing some strange things here. For example, that this path is seen behind the building. Look there. Well, we are going to solve this very easily. We activate two views, and in this one here, we are going to select the building, the main building, which is this one we have here. So that these paths are not seen behind the building. What we are going to do is move it a little bit backwards. There it is seen perfectly, as it should be. What else can we do? To give a little depth of field to this scene, we are going to go to the camera. And here in camera options, well, I have it activated because as I have been doing some tests, it has been left activated. But if you have it off, you put it on, and here, I'm going to put it, for example, at 150 aperture, so that there are buildings that look out of focus. But what I'm going to do is link the camera focus to this building. We can do it manually, for example, by moving the focus distance here. Look, this line that you see here a little whiter is the camera focus. So, if we put it here where the building is, then we have all the buildings out of focus, well, also depending on the depth they are at. The only one that is completely in focus is the main building. If I put a very high value here, they all go out of focus except the main one. Well, I was saying that we can do it manually, marking a keyframe here in focus distance, and then here at the beginning, move the focal distance again. But the simplest way is the following. I'm going to select the main building and the camera, right-click. We go here to camera, and we're going to link the focal distance with that layer. There it is. Now, no matter how much the camera moves, the focus will always be on this building, and all the others will be seen with that depth of field that gives it a super cool touch. Finally, we select all the layers and activate the motion blur, and we will do a preview of everything to see how it is turning out. Well, this looks special. Removed a small error that is seen here, where the hand is placed in front of the building. That is because of the wiggle expression that we have put on it, because it is moving randomly on all the axes. So we are going to select the hand. We have it here, and moving it a little bit backwards is enough. There it stays behind the building. We reposition it a little bit higher. And now we have finished the animation, and it is working perfectly. If you got stuck in any step, or there is something you do not understand, write me in the comments and we will solve it. And if you liked the tutorial, leave me a good like so I know. See you in the next video.